Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and I wanted to do another one of those classic movie reviews that is actually a movie that I've seen before, that I've never reviewed to you guys, because I like doing a Forrest Gump. I know you guys like my Forrest Gump review, and I kept looking at this movie. You know, I kept going into my Blu-ray cabinet and seeing this movie and thinking, why have I not reviewed this? I need to review this now, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, so I'm going to do that right now, and again, the difference between these and my other classic reviews is because this is a movie that I've seen already. I'm going to be reviewing to you, one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, I absolutely love this movie. I don't know when was this movie made? This movie was made in 1980... Let me check. Let's go to IMDb and see. This movie was made in 1982, and it is the sci-fi classic, one of my favorite films of all time, and my favorite Steven Spielberg film of all time, E.T. What is there to say about E.T. other than it is an amazing movie? I remember the first time I saw E.T., my mom was watching it. They were showing it on, Nick at Night. They're showing it on Nick at Night, because, you know, sometimes they show movies on there. And they were showing E.T. on that channel. And, my mom said, you know, you gotta watch this movie. I told her I've never seen it. This is not actually the only other thing I have of E.T. I do have VHS wherever it is. I don't know where it is, though. But basically, you know, I always wanted to, you know, have this movie on Blu-ray. This is one of those movies that, you know, I checked it out Nick at Night, and I instantly loved it. I remember the first scene I watched. I didn't see this from the beginning the first time I watched it. The first scene I watched was actually, that scene where Elliot is showing E.T. all of his toys and things like that, like the candy and things like that. Always one of my favorite scenes. But, you know, E.T., in my opinion, this is one of those movies that is an absolute masterpiece. It is an absolute classic. As I said, my favorite Spielberg film of all time, of the ones I've seen, that is, you know, I've seen E.T., Jurassic Park, what other one? I've seen some others that I reviewed to you guys. I can't remember what other ones I've seen. But, yeah, this movie definitely is his best, in my opinion. It is definitely not overrated. It's one of the few Spielberg films I've seen that I don't think is overrated. There's a few he's done, like Jurassic Park. I think that's kind of overrated, but this movie is an absolute classic. Now, if you have not seen E.T., pause this video, go to your local, Blu-ray store, get the fucking Blu-ray, and watch the damn movie, because it's amazing. It's an amazing movie, and it needs to be watched by everyone. Now, if for some reason you guys don't know the plot of E.T., which I'm sure you should know the plot of E.T. if you're stupid or something, let's just talk about what this movie's about. Basically, this movie is about, there's this, alien spaceship, basically, and, you know, there's these, like, alien botanists who collect floral samples, and, there's, like, this, spaceship that, mistakenly, you know, appears there, and unfortunately it leaves one of the, aliens behind, and that alien is E.T. Now, E.T., shifts to, you know, E.T. eventually ends up in this, you know, backyard of this suburban house of this boy Elliot's house. And Elliot finds E.T. At first, he's a little scared of him, but over time, he actually becomes very good friends with him. They form a very good bond, you know, very strong bond, and eventually he ends up telling his sister, his brother, eventually his mother finds out, and it's basically about, it's about how they are going to eventually becomes about, you know, how they're going to send E.T. back home to where he lives, and, you know, try to send him home, but in the meantime, they have, like, the government up their ass. There's a lot of shit going on in this movie, but that's pretty much what E.T.'s about, and, you know, it's a very good movie. I highly recommend you guys check it out. It's for the whole family, definitely. It's for the entire whole family. The whole family can watch this. It's one of Steven Spielberg's few movies that are family-friendly. This movie is for everyone to watch. I think everyone should definitely check this out. This movie is actually better if you're a kid, and that's one of the best parts about this movie. I mean, And also, I made a point of getting this digibook because it shows very good, you know, it shows, like, the characters and things like that. let's get to the acting in this movie. The acting in this movie is absolutely fantastic. The acting is great. I mean, the main lead here is this boy, Henry Thomas, and he was fantastic as Elliot in this movie. You really saw how much he cared for E.T. You cared about what happened to E.T. You cared about what he did for E.T. And I mean, he did such a great job playing Elliot in this movie. He was just so good in this movie. He was absolutely fantastic, and I just thought that he gave probably one of the best kid performances I've ever seen. You know, many kid performances, they're not that good, but his, in my opinion, is probably the best kid performance I've ever seen. Also in this movie, we have a very young Drew Barrymore. This was actually Drew Barrymore's very first movie. I believe she actually won an Oscar for this movie, if I'm not mistaken. I will check that out because I'm probably wrong, but let me just check that out and see if I'm right. I don't know if I'm correct about that or not, but I believe that there were some sort of awards for this movie. You know, it was nominated for Best Original Score, Best Sound Effects, you know, things like that. Best Picture, Best Director. I thought something with Drew Barrymore. I guess she just presents or something. I don't know. But basically, this movie, you know, she was very good in this movie. You really liked her character. She was adorable in this movie to watch as a very little girl. It's actually really funny, you know, you watch Drew Barrymore now in this movie, and now she's like 30-something, but she was still very good in this movie. It really showed her early talent in this movie. Robert McNaughton plays Elliot's brother, Michael. He's sort of like the clueless teen. Like, at first he's, you know, he likes to taunt Elliot and things like that. He's sort of like the clueless teen in the 80s. I mean, he definitely was very funny in the movie. Peter Coyote was also in this movie. I don't remember who he played, but, you know, he was definitely very good in the, I believe he played, did he play E.T.? I don't remember who played E.T. Dee Wallace, played Elliot's mother, and she definitely did a very good job as well. You could see how much she cared for her son. You know, she definitely did a really good job in this movie. I thought she was definitely very good. And, now, who voiced E.T.? I'm trying to remember who voiced E.T. What's the voice of E.T.? The person that played E.T. was somebody named... I'm trying to figure it out. I can't remember who played E.T. Deborah Winger, no. Pat Welsh, played E.T., and, I don't know if that was a he or she, whoever they were amazing in the movie. You know, it was really good because E.T. you cared so much for this alien. You cared so much for this alien to go home, as much as you did for the kids. I mean, E.T. really is just as good as the kids, and he really is a kid. He really is in the movie. He's very much a kid, and you really cared about him. You really wanted him to come home, and he just did a really good job at playing E.T. He was definitely very good in my opinion. I thought he was definitely really good, and just really good. Now, the directing, as I said, is directed by Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg, of course, is amazing in this movie. He beautifully directed this movie. The shots he made in this movie were just amazing. I mean, look at this scenery right here. Look at this scenery. This scenery is amazing. The cinematography was great. And this is why it's regarded as one of Steven Spielberg's best films, because of, you know, just the way he presented this movie was so good. He presented this movie in such a great stylistic way. His style to this movie was so good. I mean, he wrote a fantastic movie. He wrote a fantastic script. He knew what he was doing, of course, and he was just fantastic. The editing in this movie is really good. The movie's pretty short. It's one of his shorter films. It's an hour and 55 minutes, and that definitely makes sense why. Because it makes sense because, you know, it's an hour and 55 minutes because, it's, you know, it's a kids movie, really. It's one of his few kids movies, as I said, and, you know, it's definitely one of his best, kids movies, in my opinion. Oh, Saving Private Ryan, I've all seen that one. That's probably my second favorite of the Steven Spielberg movies I've watched. Now, the other thing to talk about, of course, in this movie is a lot of different things. I mean, this movie is a comedy, a drama, a sci-fi, an action. It has elements of everything in this movie. I mean, everything in this. It has something for everyone, really. A lot like Forrest Gump, it has something for everyone. Except this movie even has more than that. For example, there's this really great thing of how E.T., it's a classic scene. E.T. and Elliot are basically connected. Basically, whatever E.T. is feeling, Elliot's feeling. Whatever E.T. does, Elliot does. There's this great scene where E.T.'s at home, he's watching TV, and he starts to imitate what he sees on the TV. Now, Elliot, in the meantime, as I said, is connected to him. So Elliot is in school while this is happening. So Elliot starts to do some of the same things that E.T. is doing, and it's really funny to watch because, he's in the classroom and everything. There's they're doing a frog dissection, and there's this scene on TV where they're like, we gotta save them. So E.T. goes crazy about it, and E.T. just starts saving frogs, even kissing this girl in school, and he ends up getting getting sent to the principal's office. I mean, it's a classic scene. I'm sure we all remember that scene. It's one of the funniest scenes in this movie, and it's just a great scene to watch. It really is a fantastic scene, in my opinion, and it's one of the best parts of this movie is the humor. This movie is very funny at times. This movie can be very funny. That's one of the reasons why I love this movie so much, is because it's very funny, and that's one of the best things about this movie. And of course, there is the sad part of this movie. We are getting into some spoilers, and if you guys have not seen E.T., what are you doing? Go out and watch it right now. But let's get to the spoilers. Now, in case you guys have not seen the movie, of course, as we know, E.T. and Elliot both get very, very sick. E.T. gets sick, and then Elliot gets very sick because they're connected together. And they decide to, basically, the Scientologists, the botanists, decide to unconnect them, do whatever they can to unconnect them, and basically what they end up doing is, basically that they end up, unconnecting E.T. and Elliot, and what they end up doing is, by doing this, by unconnecting the two of them, E.T. almost dies, and there's that moment where, like, oh my god, is E.T. gonna die? And, he doesn't die, of course, and then you're so happy that E.T. didn't die, you're so happy that he lived, you're happy for, Elliot that, he's alive and everything, and, that moment where E.T. dies for, those, I'd say 30 seconds where he's dead, it's just such a shift in tone, and, Spielberg does it in a way that doesn't seem forced at all. I mean, that scene does not seem forced, because most of this movie is pretty much a comedy, I'd say like a dramedy, but finally we get to that one big point where it's like, is E.T. gonna die? I remember the first time I watched it, I thought E.T. was dead. I thought E.T. was going to die. And he didn't die, and when he didn't die, I was so happy that he didn't die. And, I mean, that scene was just so, so powerful. And just that scene, of course, where E.T. is sent back home, and, he says goodbye to all of them, and he touches Elliot's nose, and he goes, I'll be right here. I mean, that's such a classic scene, because it's just like, E.T. and Elliot were so connected, they were the best of friends, and E.T. sent back home, and it's such a powerful scene to watch. I mean, it's just a fantastic scene. The other thing that we do need to talk about is the score to this movie. The score to this movie is one of the most memorable scores of all time. I mean, especially this scene right here. The score that plays when this scene happens is just amazing. I mean, that scene is amazing, and it's one of the best scores of all time. This movie's actually quoted a lot, especially E.T., phone, home. Especially that line is quoted a lot, and I can definitely see that, because it's one of the best, quotes of all time. It goes with the movie so well. I mean, it's fantastic. It's also one of my parents' favorite films. My mom actually told me the story. She wanted to go see the movie Annie, because it came out the same exact year, and she didn't get a chance to see it. She was really upset that she didn't see it. This when she was a little girl. She tells me the story every time. Every time we watch E.T., my mom tells me the story. Basically, she went to see E.T. and she loved it, and it's still one of her favorite movies today. It's one of my parents' favorite movies today. It's one of my dad's favorite movies. It's one of all of our favorite movies. And, it was one of those movies where, if you guys don't have this movie on Blu-ray, get it, because this transfer is amazing. It's one of the best transfers. I mean, that's why it still is great today, because it has an amazing transfer. I mean, really. And also, the concept art of E.T. I forgot to talk about this as well. The concept art of E.T. was amazing. I mean, look at how far they went in this. It really shows you, the concept art and things like that. I mean, the concept art was amazing in this movie, in my opinion. I thought the concept art was great to this movie. I thought they did a great job with the concept art, and that was one of the best parts of this movie, was the concept art. That's another great thing, is how E.T. looks, how he feels, things like that. Like, just the way E.T.'s a very fascinating creature. This came out at a time when Star Wars was popular. This came out at a time when, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which I think is a little overrated, but it still is a very good movie. The reason I say Close Encounters of the Third Kind is overrated is because of this movie. I think this movie is better than Close Encounters of the Third Kind, in my personal opinion. I think it is a better movie, and I think that's why it's such a classic. I mean, as I said, it came out at a time with Star Wars and things like that, but this movie was different from all of them. It was more family-friendly, and it still continues to be a masterpiece today. So yeah, E.T., it's an absolute masterpiece. If you guys have not seen E.T., just go out and get it, because it's amazing. I could talk about this movie all day, because it is fantastic. It is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it will always be one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's a movie that you need to check out right now if you haven't already. Alright, so that's it for my review of E.T. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie. Personally, I really enjoyed this movie. I'm sorry this was such a long review. But, I like doing these classic movie reviews of movies that I've seen already that I reviewed to you guys. I like doing that. And, I wanted to do one other, and I thought E.T. was the perfect one to do, because I've been reviewing all these Spielberg films, and I wanted to finally reveal my favorite Spielberg film of all time was. But that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next classic movie review, which will be for a movie I've never seen before. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.